r/malicious compliance. Punish me for being right? GL. Over a decade ago I was a material handler at a manufacturing company. Pretty tedious work breaking down large batches of materials into smaller manageable quantities for the workers. Gotta keep every station supplied, well organized, and order materials to meet future quotas. One day I notice a new lot of parts are out of spec. They are too small, and will damage the final product, causing it to fail testing later. This part comes in lots between 5K 30K, depending on what was ordered and passed inspection from the supplier. I put a hold on the lot of 25K, emailed the appropriate people, follow procedure. Looking through the system, I realize we only have about 1K on hand, one more lot in warehouse for 7K. This is enough for 1 week. I place another order for 30K, we usually get 25K. It takes 2 weeks to get, another week for cleaning and polishing. I send off another email informing of the shortage and how it will impact production. The only response I got was, "We'll look into it." After we ran out of parts, I was ordered to take the out-of-spec parts off hold. I refused, an engineer hadn't cleared them. The engineer was on vacation out of town and the other didn't know. A few days later, some random engineer from another department told me they were good, and I was forced to release the lot. I got a verbal warning for insubordination and, relieved of my MH duties, got put back on production. 2 weeks later, all the parts starting failing. 2 weeks worth of about 110 people's labor, machine time, untold tens possibly hundreds of thousands of individual parts wasted. Chaos erupts, mandatory OT set, and I'm just smiling. About 2 months goes by, 4th of July weekend coming up, and I got 5-day weekend with PTO. Managers tried to cancel, but I already had it approved in January. Almost everyone in the room was going to be worked the 5th and 6th, Friday and Saturday. People were quitting left and right, being forced to work 60 HRS burned them out. QMC. Since we had been working these few special machines so hard on OT, the material was running out that it used to spray on the parts. To replace it, it required a 3-day cycle, in which we usually happened on a Friday, Sunday. Every couple of months. We were about a week ahead of schedule with the OT. I knew it, but no one else was paying attention. I decided to take a half day on Tuesday, so I could leave during the team leads meeting that I used to be a part of. On my way out, I mentioned this little problem. A couple of them ran to confirm. I grabbed a soda and left. Got a text from a coworker, they ran out of material Wednesday morning. Everyone got a 4-day weekend like they were supposed to. 10 people, including myself, quit on Monday. Moral of the story: don't fuck with the people that do all your future planning if you can't do it yourself. Woman wasn't expecting she would be having a riding buddy. This malicious compliance takes place in the Czech Republic, where many people are often really grumpy. My GF, 30, and I, am 21, were waiting for a bus ride to go to her hometown for a wedding. As you'd expect, we had 3 bags and they were packed to the point where zipping the bag required you to sit on it, especially her bag as she was one of the bridesmaids. Before we boarded the bus, we had to wait for the passengers who had paid beforehand to reserve seats. My GF and I had not prepaid. We were in somewhat of a line which allowed for the passengers who reserved seats to pass. The line for unreserved seat passengers was essentially respected, except by this woman. She arrived when the line was somewhat being formed and decided to stand next to us. As our turn to board was coming up, she quickly scooted in front of my GF and looked forward as if she was completely oblivious to the fact she had done something that was traditionally frowned upon. My GF was obviously quite annoyed and started saying out loud, in English, "Much of the older generation in this country doesn't understand English very well. Well, that's a bitchy thing to do." Can you believe this woman? I was calm as I had counted how many people had already boarded the bus. and there was still a good chance we'd find seats together in the unreserved rows, so I didn't think it called for any type of confrontation. Still, I had calmly responded, "Let's be honest, we can't be surprised when bitches do bitcha things." Looking back, it was unnecessary, but I was also tired and the bags were heavy, so I was a bit impatient. We finally sit down and my GF chose to sit in the 2 free seats behind her. I would have chosen the seats in front of her and then just slowly reclined my seat back every few minutes so that she wouldn't have noticed my little act of revenge, but this ended up being better. It's important to note that the row the woman chose was the last row with an overhead shelf for bags. The shelf was a little longer in the front, so every person essentially had space for their bag if they moved their bags a little towards the front of the bus. It's also important to mention that the shelf was essentially empty and I could have placed another 5 bags next to ours if I wanted to. We finally hit the road and the woman is talking on the phone, loudly I might add, saying how she's going to visit her grandson who is so sweet but that he plays metal music in his room and she can't stand the sound of it. After she finishes the call, she takes off her windbreaker and plans to put it above her seat. She finally sees that my bag is directly above her seat, and instead of moving her jacket 35 centimeters to the right on the shelf or setting her jacket on the empty seat beside her, she decides to confront me. In an entitled tone, "Excuse me, young man, but I can't put my jacket anywhere because your fat bag is in the way." I was bored, so decided to act like this was a tragedy. "Oh no. What will we do? Maybe if we put our heads together we can find a solution." Her face turned from shock to old communist grandma rage. She yelled back, "Well, don't you know that the shelf space is for the person directly below the seat?" "Oh, I'm so sorry. I truly didn't know that was like an unspoken rule. So the space above your seat is only for you and the potential passenger next to you?" I say, truly acting sorry and embarrassed. Yes, it is. "So please move it, your spot," she says, acting victorious. "Of course. Right away." I quickly get up and take my GF's bag off the shelf and place it on the seat where I was sitting next to her. I keep my bag in the exact same spot and plop myself right next to old woman with a grin. The look on her face was absolutely priceless as she was trying to understand what just happened. I smile at her, take my headphones out and play some death metal way too loud so that she can definitively hear it. I might have hearing loss. I don't even like death metal, but it was definitively worth it knowing she was annoyed the whole time. My GF was sad I didn't sit next to her for the bus ride, but she ultimately agreed it was the best way to get back at her. "You don't want me to unload my car? Great. So this happened a while ago. I had to deliver some of our company's products from one work site to another multiple times. I usually arrived before the other employees started their work, so I figured I could unload my car already in order to save my co-workers time and for me to not be interrupted during my work later during the day. Plus I was the one who knew which products were ordered by which customer, so I didn't have to spend time on figuring out which belongs to which customer since I was the one who loaded everything into the car. So I put all the loose products for each customer from the trunk on a separate Europallet, pushed it into our workshop with a pallet truck, put the delivery notices on each of them and left them in a visible place for my co-worker to move them wherever he wanted whenever he wanted without much hassle or manpower needed. When he arrived and started working, I went up to him and told him what products arrived and for which customer these were in order to make sure he knows about the orders as well. Since I didn't know where to put the pallets, I placed them into the workshop via the pallet truck because I didn't want these products to stay outside and opening up an opportunity for passerbys to steal the company's products. After I did the same procedure twice, he came up to me and gave me a 10-minute lecture about how it could possibly come to my mind to make such a huge mess in the workshop. He criticized that I put the products in the wrong place, messing up his storage system, and that the products fell off the Europalettes all the time, which is funny because it didn't happen when I used the pallet truck to bring them into the workshop. As such, he declared I'm not allowed to unload the car again. A week later we received a huge order with over 2 tons worth of products. I had 560 kilograms of different products customized but not packaged in my trunk. As per his request, I didn't unload the car. At some point he came up to me and asked me to unload the car. My response: no. I'll just make a huge mess in the workshop. And we don't want the products to fall off from the pallets. You should just do it by yourself. His face when he realized he had to sort it all out himself and manually unload it was quite funny. It was even better when he noticed I couldn't bring a delivery notice because the order wasn't complete yet. Thus he had to check every single product and write down what products arrived in which quantity already. All by himself. Of course I knew the quantities, but he didn't ask me. That 5-minute task easily took him half an hour to do.